Remarkable late in the game development in the presidential race today. It is October 1st. It's October. But what happened today is roughly the opposite of an October surprise, I guess. Today, the Republican Party announced that in 5 of the 9 or so swing states in the presidential race this year, in the 5 states that you see marked here with an X on this map, the Republican Party is stopping its voter registration efforts. The Republican Party has suddenly and totally, as of October 1st, given up on trying to register new voters in Nevada and Colorado and Virginia and North Carolina and Florida. Each of those states is very much in play this year. Each of them could be critical to winning the presidency. And the Republican Party has announced that in these 5 key swing states, they are going to stop registering new voters. Here are the voter registration deadlines for those states. And typically what this would mean is between now and the last minute of the last hour on the last date that you see on the screen for each of those states, the parties would be in a full-out sprint to maximize the number of voters they are registering. They would be expecting that with each passing day, they would be registering more and more and more voters. Because obviously, as you get closer and closer to the election, more people who haven't been paying attention previously are starting to pay attention. The closer you get to Election Day, the closer you get to the end, the more enthusiasm there tends to be. The more people who didn't think they were interested start to get interested. And so you need to be gunning it right until the finish line in terms of registering voters. That's how it works, right? It's a crescendo. But again, the Republican Party announced today that they will no longer even be trying to register voters in those 5 states, and 5 of the 9 or so states where this presidential election is going to be decided. This is a remarkable development. The reason the Republicans have stopped registering voters in these states is that the company that had been hired to do the work of voter registration by the Republican Party is a company called Strategic Allied Consulting. The Republican Party chose this company as their voter registration vendor. They were going to pay that company to do all of that work for them in these 5 swing states. The RNC nationally picked that company and directed the state parties in those 5 states to use them for this work. The executive director of the North Carolina Republican Party says his state chapter had hired the company on the recommendation of the RNC. He said, quote, "These are good people running the RNC, and I have a lot of confidence in them." In swing state Nevada, the National Party paid the company directly. In the 4 other states, the National Party gave the states money for the purpose of hiring the company, so the states would not have to worry about voter registration. This company would do the whole thing. The National Party told the states to hire the company, gave the states the money to do it, right? So this company, the good people at the Republican National Headquarters, they had it under control. Well, now the Republican Party has fired that company. And there is no Republican plan B for registering voters in these 5 swing states, because that one company was the only company, the Republican Party's only plan for voter registration. And that is all the more remarkable because the Republican Party knew when they decided to put all of their eggs in this basket that this was a relatively troubled basket to be putting its eggs in. The company exists as Strategic Allied Consulting because the Republican Party told the lead political consultant who runs the company that he was going to need to come up with a new corporate name. Because under his old corporate names, under the old company names in which he had been doing this work, he had gotten too much bad press over the way he had handled voter registrations. Quote, "In order to be able to do the jobs that the state parties were hiring us to do, the RNC asked us to do it with a different company's name, so as not to be a distraction from the false information put out in the Internet." The reason there is stuff in the Internet about this company that needed to be covered up by a change in name is because of claims from a previous election where the Republican Party had hired them. In 2004, this same consultant's company was accused of destroying hundreds, if not thousands, of voter registration forms where the hopeful wannabe new voter signed up as a Democrat. The company was accused of doing the same kind of thing in Oregon, either ignoring voters who said they wanted to sign up as Democrats or completing their forms and trashing them later. In Minnesota, the company was said to have fired canvassers who came back with forms for new Democratic voters and to have given a bonus to anyone who got a registration from undecided voters or from voters that year who said they were going for George Bush or Ralph Nader. Neither the firm nor the consultant ever faced criminal charges after those elections. But this year, when the Republican Party realized it wanted to hire them again, the Republican Party did have the good sense to at least ask the guy to change the name of his company before he took millions of Republican dollars this year for voter registration. And now this same guy, he's a former executive director of the Arizona Republican Party, whose group was investigated over those allegations in 2004. Now his group, operating under a different name, as the sole vendor for voter registration efforts in 5 swing states for the Republican Party, now his group is suspected of more shenanigans. In Florida, the company turned in more than 100 suspect voter registration forms in Palm Beach County. They were suspect because they were missing obvious information or names were spelled one way and then signed another. The company blamed the problems on a single bad employee, a single bad apple in that one county. But then Florida election officials found registration forms that also looked fraudulent in nearly a dozen Florida counties. Worse, the Republican Party's trusted firm for voter registration appears to have misled voters in Colorado. You might have seen this video kicking around on the internet. This young woman signing up voters at a Colorado grocery store saying that she is working for the local county clerk and that she can only sign up Republicans. She does not appear to have been working for the local county clerk. She does appear to have been trying to sign up just Republicans. In Nevada, the firm is accused of tearing up the form of somebody who wanted to register as a Democrat.
In a statement the person gave to the Secretary of State's office, they say they witnessed a man registering voters in Henderson, and, quote, he told her she needed to fill out another form, and when she marked Democrat, he told her to rip it up and fill out another form and leave party affiliation blank. Our source was later able to fish out the form from the trash and gave us this picture.
One employee of this firm in Florida says that he was told to ask people who they supported, and if the answer was Mitt Romney, he was supposed to sign them up. If not, well, then not. In Virginia, after the Republican firm's canvassers were reported to be fishing for voters at local libraries, one county elections official felt compelled to remind everyone that the law says you cannot throw out voter registration forms just because you do not like the party registration of the voter. The reason it's illegal in lots of states, including Florida, to pay canvassers per registration is that it creates an incentive for that canvasser to make up fake registrations, to make up fake people that register to vote so they can get paid for those registrations. It is a form of fraud and it is a bad thing, but it doesn't necessarily affect any election outcomes because those are fake people who are being made up and registered. Those fake people don't exist in the real world, so they're not going to show up and vote. The actually worrying thing in voter registration fraud is if you do get real people to fill out real voter registration forms and they therefore believe they are registered, and then because you don't like their party affiliation, you tear that up, and then that real person thinks they've registered, they show up on election day only to find out that they're not actually on the rolls and they're not going to be allowed to vote. After the reports in the past few days, the Republicans' firm is now under investigation in Florida and reportedly in Nevada and in North Carolina. And the collapse of the Republicans' voter registration scheme has resulted in the Republican Party ceasing all voter registration efforts in 5 of the swingiest swing states in the country, with another week and a half left for them to be trying to register voters. They're not going to be able to do that. They have ended those efforts. Just a remarkable development. Joining